What if Coleman Trebor killed Count Dooku in Attack of the Clones? What if Jedi High Council member Coleman Trebor actually managed to defeat Count Dooku at the Pentarchy arena battle on Geonosis? Our story begins with Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme struggling against the various beasts in the Colosseum on Geonosis. That is, until Mace Windu and the rest of the Jedi Battle Squadron arrive to support them. Along with Mace Windu, there were other prominent council members present, such as Ki-Adi-Mundi, Plo Koon, and the most powerful of them was present as well, of course that being Coleman Trebor. Coleman, the noble peace-seeking Verk, used his tactical mind and force skills to sneak up and surprise Dooku. In this instance, Coleman Trebor climbed higher up above Dooku and utilized the high ground and stealthily drops down on him using his extended reach of his 2.13 meter tall frame to stab Dooku before he could react in time. He also came at an angle where Jango Fett only noticed after it was too late. Coleman knew his fate would most likely be death, but taking Dooku out would lead to peace in his mind. After successfully killing Dooku, Coleman was similarly gunned down by Fett. However, with Dooku down for the count, events of the Star Wars galaxy were bound to go differently. First off, with Count Dooku dead, the Confederacy of Independent System, or CIS, leaders, Viceroy and the Geonosian Poggle quickly made a break for it to escape, first deploying all battle droids to fight the Jedi and distract them while they made their escape. The Jedi were reinforced with a grand clone army with Grandmaster Yoda, and without the leadership of Dooku, the CIS took an even heavier loss in this battle. I should also mention that with Dooku being killed, Jango Fett no longer feels obligated to be by his side, so after killing Trebor, the immediate threat, he takes his son Boba Fett and they make a break for Slave One and blast off, returning to the bounty hunter world as father and son and as Mandalorians. Now, with no Dooku, we don't get the duel between Dooku and Obi-Wan and Anakin, nor Dooku versus Grandmaster Yoda. Anakin Skywalker never gets his arm cut off, which means his ability to use the Force is not weakened, and him remaining whole means he will only be stronger, a version of himself with more midichlorians and better Force using, and just truly the chosen one. Now, a major problem with Dooku's death is the Death Star plans that he was supposed to deliver to Palpatine. Luckily for Palpatine, the Geonosian Poggle managed to get it off his body before fleeing the system. Later, Palpatine would get his hands on the plans, luckily, but with the death of Count Dooku, or rather Darth Tyrannus, he was left with a vacant apprentice position. He always planned to get rid of Dooku eventually, but he had anticipated Dooku to be a much more useful chess piece in the newly started Clone Wars. He already had his eyes on Anakin, but he wasn't ready to make his move yet. Darth Sidious was left with no choice. He reached out through the Force, through meditation, and he sensed Maul was still alive, barely clinging to life via his hatred of the Jedi Kenobi. In Palpatine's eyes, Maul was a failure, but he had no better option at the moment. So, in secret, Palpatine goes to the junkyard off Lothal Minor, finds Maul, sweet-talks him with that classic Palpatine manipulation, and restores his legs with cybernetic legs. Funny enough, the same legs that Vader would later use in the main timeline. Sidious informs the CIS leaders of Darth Maul's return and how he will aid the CIS in the war against the Republic. In this timeline, Darth Maul plays the part as the leader of the CIS, or the counterpart to Dooku, and he seeks out his brother Savage Opress, who will act as General Grievous's counterpart, the leader of the droid army. In this timeline, Grievous' training was not complete due to Dooku's premature death, and Maul had no interest in him. Neither did Palpatine, and Palpatine decided Grievous was ultimately a failed project, but sedated what was left of him and let him live in a bacta tank on a remote planet for future use if need be. Maul reclaimed his title of Darth, and they commanded the CIS through fear, and were not as well liked by key CIS leaders as Dooku was. But they got results through fear and total domination. This CIS regime didn't take prisoners, and Savage Opress was especially brutal. The stage was set, and nearly a 3-year galactic civil war was waged between the CIS and the Grand Army of the Republic. Anakin Skywalker, who was similarly battle-hardened in this timeline, was just a bit stronger than he was due to being whole. The Clone Wars made him strong in the Force and a powerful Jedi general. Toward the end of the war, Anakin and Obi-Wan were selected for a mission to defeat Maul and Savage Opress to end the war. They were discovered to be hiding out on Dathomir, as clone intelligence had reported. The 501st Clone Battalion and the 212th Battalion joined Jedi Generals Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and Commander Ahsoka Tano for the invasion of Dathomir. A massive dogfight broke over the surface of Dathomir as the ships approached from hyperspace. The Jedi and battalions of clones were sent in gunships to begin their assault. They were met with a massive droid army with Night Sisters in the mix as well. Savage Opress was the field commander, and Maul commanded from the backline, with whispers of the Night Sister witch Mother Talzin influencing him, giving him some kind of special enhanced dark side powers. The battle at first was going poorly for the Republic, as it was difficult to land forces on the poorly lit surface. Gunships were being shut down, and it was hard to get a foothold on the surface, which also served to have little to no flat, even ground with no obstructions for landing. The Jedi took matters into their own hands when Anakin Skywalker ultimately decided to get into his Jedi Starfighter and use his ace pilot skills to do damage to the anti-air guns of the Separatists on the ground and use evasive maneuvers and spinning as a trick to draw fire away from the transports. This worked out perfectly, and finally the Jedi and clone troopers were able to get a good footing on the ground and start landing their forces. The next phase on the ground began, with Obi-Wan leading the 212th with Commander Coney forward, and with Commander Ahsoka Tano and Rex leading the 501st from a position a few miles from them. The plan was that of a pincer attack, from which the two battalions would smash through the droid army and corner Maul and the Separatist leaders. While many clones fell, droids fell at a much faster rate. Savage Opress decided to make a stand when he started to realize the battle wasn't going in his favor. He fought Ahsoka Tano head on and did some serious damage. He cut off her right arm after overwhelming her with his brute strength, and he had left Captain Rex unconscious. And just as he was about to finish Ahsoka off, a blue lightsaber extruded from his chest, killing him instantly. General Anakin Skywalker had finally caught up with the ground forces. "I need a medical unit now!" Anakin screamed, and he picked up Ahsoka, who was struggling to breathe. She opened her eyes briefly, and Anakin said, "You did well, Snips." She smiled and fell unconscious. The medical team took her away. The final phase of the battle commenced. The final foothold was held by commandos and super battle droids, but the most dangerous duo of the Republic, Master Kenobi and Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, pressed forward. Finally, they broke through the walls of the fortress and their last defenses, and they confronted Maul and the Mother Talzin. "Kenobi!" Maul said as he lunged at Obi-Wan with his dual red saber. Obi-Wan expected this, and the Master of Sorcery played his opponent. Maul was stronger than he was before, that was for sure, but so was Obi-Wan. This would be the final meeting between the pair. Meanwhile, Mother Talzin was awakening spirits of the dead, reanimating countless corpses to send at Anakin and the commando clones and ARC troopers that were behind them. They were being overwhelmed for a time until Anakin had had enough and extended both arms, which were both flesh and blood, and let out a force wave dismantling all the reanimated bodies. He killed off Mother Talzin then and there. Meanwhile, red sabers clashed against blue. Maul was pushing Kenobi back, but after the Night Sister magic faded from Maul, Kenobi switched from Sorsu stance to a more offensive fighting style and dealt a near-fatal blow to Maul. He was disarmed and restrained. He was unconscious, but the plan was to take him back to Coruscant for the Jedi to question him. Something was off about this war, and the Jedi were going to find out. After the victory on Dathomir, Anakin had returned home to greet his pregnant wife. He had begun having dreams of her dying in childbirth in his time back at Coruscant. He also visited Ahsoka Tano daily, who was on the track to recovery and given a prosthetic arm in the hospital. Ahsoka and Anakin were very close, so he finally felt comfortable to mention to her that he and Padme were together, which came at no surprise to Ahsoka. Ahsoka was happy for them and happy to hear Anakin was going to be a father. But Anakin also shared with her the dreams of Padme dying in childbirth. But Ahsoka Tano, the positive personality that she was, cheered him up and said she would be there for them. And they were just dreams. As the dreams ramped up, the Jedi had assigned Anakin to spy on Chancellor Palpatine. After the Jedi Council had questioned Maul, Maul had claimed that Palpatine was the one behind the war. But they cannot fully trust Maul, as Maul was a Sith Lord, but they needed to proceed with caution if the Jedi Order were to survive. Now, this was something Anakin was not super thrilled to be assigned to, but ultimately he agreed to it. After all, Anakin was made a Jedi Master following his great victory on Dathomir. He was in better spirits with the Jedi in this timeline. Following the battle on Dathomir, the CIS forces crumbled, but were not yet completely defeated. A new leader emerged for the CIS, someone of the name Grievous. Palpatine was getting desperate now, as his talks with Anakin didn't seem as receptive as he had anticipated. Palpatine decided his best chance was to lure as many Jedi as he possibly could out to a great battle and execute Order 66. He ordered Grievous to lead the greater part of what remained of the droid army back to Geonosis. He instructed him to lure the Jedi forces there. Grievous transmitted to all frequencies across the galaxy, enticing the Jedi and the Republic to come to Geonosis, where they would settle the war once and for all. Where it had started, the Clone Wars would also end, with the Second Battle of Geonosis. The Council knew this was most likely a trap, but they also knew the Grand Army of the Republic was in better shape than the Separatist droid army. They decided that half of their remaining forces, a force of a little over 100,000 clones with over 100 Jedi generals, would be sufficient. Mace Windu was selected to be the ultimate commander of the Republic forces, with Luminara, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Shakti, and Obi-Wan Kenobi being additional field generals. There were, of course, many more commanders and generals for a battle of this scale, but this was the approximate structure of the campaign. Anakin Skywalker, who typically would be the first to sign up for a campaign like this, decided that he couldn't leave Ahsoka Tano's side, who was still recovering in the hospital, nor his very pregnant wife, who was expecting any day now. Plus, he had his mission with Palpatine. When the battle erupted on Geonosis for a second time now, it was complete hell. The battlefield was a wasteland and a complete mess. The Republic had a significant advantage, but with a battle of this scale, there were countless casualties on both sides. After 4 grueling days of combat, the droid army was all but wiped out, and General Grievous was defeated by Mace Windu. A little less than half the clone troopers remained, and many Jedi had died, with others wounded and exhausted. Clone Commander Cody reported the victory to Chancellor Palpatine, and Palpatine had this to say: "Good, good. Now I have but one more order for you and the rest of the clones. Execute Order 66. It was a complete bloodbath. The Jedi that remained on Geonosis, Mace Windu included, were wiped out by the clones. Many clones died, but the Jedi were simply overwhelmed. There were still many Jedi at the temple, but most of which were Padawans and less battle-tested Jedi. Only Master Yoda remained from the Council back at Coruscant. Not even Master Kenobi survived on Geonosis. Palpatine, shortly after executing the order on Geonosis, executed Order 66 to all clones across the galaxy besides the 501st Legion who remained on Coruscant. First, he had business to do. He called Anakin, who was reluctant to come visit him. He informed Anakin of the Jedi's traitorous attempt to take over and the events that transpired on Geonosis, in addition to his master's death. He also told Anakin he had the power to save the ones he loved, specifically that being Padme. This time, Anakin was not having it. He put 2 and 2 together. Palpatine was the Sith Lord and responsible for the nightmares, and now the death of his dear master Kenobi, and this pointless war he had started had left countless friends of his dead and fellow Jedi masters. Ahsoka Tano was hanging onto a thread due to this pointless war as well. This was all just a ploy for him to be used by Palpatine. He was conflicted no more. Anakin was not having it. Palpatine told Anakin to go to the Jedi Temple with the 501st to wipe out any remaining Jedi. Anakin lied and agreed to do this, but in reality, he went to get Jedi Master Yoda and returned with him to confront Palpatine, or should I say, Darth Sidious. Palpatine was extremely powerful. Force lightning ricocheted everywhere. Crimson blades, green and blue, lit up his Coruscant office, but with the combined efforts of Grandmaster Yoda and a fully intact, full-power Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, they defeated Palpatine and put the war to the end once and for all. The clones were informed of the truth of what had really happened and were sick with grief with what they had done. They spent the next year building a great monument on Geonosis to remember the fallen Jedi on Geonosis and those that had given their lives in the war. They had their inhibitor chips removed, and clones across the galaxy laid down their weapons once and for all. Padme Amidala gave birth to just one child in this timeline, a boy. And Anakin and Padme decided it was only fitting to name him after their late friend, Obi-Wan. With so many vacancies in the Jedi Council, Anakin was promoted to fill the role Mace Windu had left behind and learned the subtleties of the Force at his leisure. Yoda and the remaining Jedi had no reason or power to deny Anakin at this point, with all he had done to stop the Sith from taking over and to end the war. His marriage was an exception, and the Jedi became more lenient with love in due time due to Anakin's example and leadership. The now auntie Ahsoka Tano and Anakin Skywalker brought little Obi-Wan Jr. to Geonosis to see who his namesake and who he's named after, looking at the great statue of the great master of the Jedi, Obi-Wan Kenobi, who had fallen here to protect the lives of those and bring democracy to the galaxy. And it was an emotional scene. I mean, Anakin and Ahsoka held back tears, and Obi-Wan Jr. got to get a glimpse of the greatness of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And Obi-Wan Jr. grew up to be a very powerful Jedi, with his father, Anakin Skywalker, being his master who trained him personally. And the father-son duo became the most powerful Jedi in the galaxy, ending slavery and bringing peace throughout the galaxy. And the world was just a better place with more love. And that, my friends, is where our story ends today. If you enjoyed, make sure to drop a like and subscribe for more videos. I've got a blockbuster, multi-part short series of what ifs in the works right now for this year, so you're not going to want to miss that. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, become a member to get behind the scenes access to what we're working on and to further support the channel. With that being said, that's going to wrap it up, and yeah, see you guys in the next one, and may the Force be with you, always.